Hi everyone, my name is Anthony and I am the original creator and co-founder of Progress Singapore Party. And I'm here today to share with you, a simple story of how Progress Singapore Party came about. One of the main reasons why I'm doing this today is because I have terminal stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and the cancer has spread throughout my entire body. I think it's important that before anything actually happens to me, that I sort of share, the real history and the truths behind Progress Singapore Party. When I first wanted to set up Progress Singapore Party, it was actually back in 2017. And what led to it was the elected presidency lawsuit at that point of time. So back in 2017, for those of you who might not know, there was this reserve elected presidency issue that was ongoing, where we wanted to have a minority be able to become a president, of Singapore. And the government at the point in time somehow felt that minorities needed a leg up, they needed some form of help, which kind of differed from our views, because where I stood and where I saw, equal, capable, fellow Singaporeans, regardless of skin color, regardless of their religion and things like that, that were able to step up to the plate and become this independent president, that we needed. So at that point of time, I was helping Dr. Tan, and reasons why I wanted to help Dr. Tan was very simple. I did believe that we needed a more independent president, and Dr. Tan had already left the PAP then, and things like that. And I sort of knew him in some ways as well. So we decided to go into this lawsuit. One of the strong beliefs that I held with me was that we should not alter history for the convenience of whatever processes that we want to do. History is important. And when we decided that President Wee Kim Wee was deemed to be an elected president, I felt it wasn't right, because in the eyes of most Singaporeans, we would know that Ong Ting Chong was the first elected president. That's what we learned, and that's what we know. And that was what was in history. That was the process that was done by the people. Wee Kim Wee was voted and elected by Parliament. So of course we went to court, and there was this sorting of this issue and things like that. And we didn't win. Dr. Tan didn't win, and lost on appeal as well. I remember that day when I stepped out of the courthouse, and Parliament was just across the road. And I remember looking at our Singapore flag. I felt really down, because we have these 5 values, that's represented on a flag. And one of them was progress. To me, it felt regressive back then when this elected presidency lawsuit was going on. I felt it was a pity that we had to waste so much time, effort and resource, to deal with something that was regressive actually. But that's also when I felt that progress was fading, and I was very bothered by the entire issue. I didn't look at it at the point of time where it was disliking a PAP or hating a PAP or things like that. It wasn't that. The whole idea that I felt back then was to preserve the important points in our history and to be able to deliver progress for our people in the future, for this country. I went back and I actually thought really hard about it. So there's something about me that people, would perhaps be a bit more skeptical in having me come forth. So one of which is I am just a regular HDB heartlander, and I was just an O-level guy. I had no fantastically high education. I mean, I did go beyond, O-levels at some point, but I stopped. The typical Singapore model and idea of thinking of doing anything political, being office holder, be it a civil servant, things like that was that, you have to be this scholar, you have to be this, high flyer, you have to be from the Ivy League, and things like that. So when I floated the idea of starting a political party, people looked at me and were like, "Xiao are you?" That kind of thing. They were like, how is it even possible, Anthony? You live in a 3-room flat. You run a small business of your own. You are O-level holder. You are nobody. You're not from the Ivy Leagues. You are not like a multi-millionaire, who's decided to step down and become a politician and things like that. You're not any of those things. You're from the street. You're from people. That's it. You are not the higher powers up there. So nobody believed, at the point that I could set up a political party. And to be honest, I thought, I had doubts already then. I was like, yeah, maybe it's true, right? I mean, everyone we see has this amazing CV, and things like that. But I was also advised by some friends. I said, are you sure you want to do this? You want to be known as an opposition party member? You want to be this opposition party guy? Opposition is not a good label, to have in Singapore. And some people are saying, oh, you might get yourself in trouble, with the government and things like that. I didn't come up with any malicious or nefarious, intentions when I wanted to create PSP. It was purely just for the people. It's purely for the fact that I thought of the longevity of our country and the way we're progressing, and that I looked at the existing opposition scene then, I felt that we needed to inject something fresh, something that was different. We had to change the nature of the beast, in politics. We needed more conversations. We needed to find ways to empower, our people so that our people will flourish. Because when your people are empowered and they flourish, your economy will flourish then. It's not about the economy flourishing first, then your people will then flourish. These were all basic things that I wanted to go about with. And I actually messaged Dr. Tan back then to let him know that I wanted to do this. And he gave me his blessings. He said, we'll support you. And that meant a lot, because to me, if I can't do it and if he thinks I can't do it, there's a very high chance I can't do it. So to get his endorsement then, that we will support you, was a very strong thing. So I did a bit of research on the word progress. But what came to me was that progress was very important, and I had to put that in the party name. And the identifier is Singapore. I'm proud of Singapore, and I love Singapore. And Singapore's name had to be there. The word party as well. The initial idea was that it would be just Progress Singapore. But we realized that people needed something more to identify with, so they used the word party. And then came about the idea of PSP, and when I look back in history, one of the first original political parties we had was a Progress Party. So one of the first political parties we had in Singapore was actually called Progressive Party. And that was founded by Tan Cheng back then. And interestingly, the law firm that we had engaged to deal with the elected presidency lawsuit was Tan Raja and Cha. And Tan Cheng actually is the founder of Tan Raja and Cha. But people were still telling me that PSP is not a very good name, maybe because PlayStation Portable and all that, they'll make fun of you. But then again, it's memorable, isn't it? People will remember PSP easily. I started to look around as to what we can do, with this. And I had 3 friends or so, acquaintances back then that came on board. We were brainstorming ideas, as to what to do. There were different principles, different ideologies, but we all understood one thing. We need to do something for Singapore's future. And we thought that perhaps we should even start identifying an area where we want to cover, getting to know the people there, and things like that. And we started with West Coast actually. So 3 of us went around the entire West Coast GRC on foot. We walked from Telok Blangah all the way to Boon Lay. It was a very interesting journey, for us, because we were seeing a lot of things up close that we sort of missed when we took our buses or when we drove by in many of these parts of Singapore. The more we walked, the more I felt strongly about having to do something for the people. We have very lovable fellow countrymen. We have beautiful places, we have beautiful people. And there was so much that was there that made me worried about the fact that there might be nobody else that can step up to the plate should one day PAP not do very well. That was when I also realized that PSP had to be prepared to run the country when needed, because we should not offer ourselves to the people as choice if we're not prepared to run the country one day. I mean, we should be there for a good reason, right? We shouldn't be there just to give, oh, I just want to go to Parliament and talk. Anyone can go to Parliament and talk if they really tried to stand for elections and things like that. But the future of our country is not just about talking in Parliament. It's about building a proper party, being able to run the country in the future. And we have a lot to learn, to be frank. And there's so much more that actually we still can learn in terms of governance. And there's also a lot of things that we can add on to better the governance. So when we were doing all this walkabout and things like that, we realized that manpower and everything would be an issue. One of our friends who was walking together with us was like, Anthony, is exhausting, doing all these things. We need more people. We can't run everything, on our own. So back then I was still in touch with Dr. Tan. After helping him with the EP lawsuit and things like that, I thought that he might be a very good political mentor to so-called help lead the party. So I wrote to him by email to invite him to actually join forces, and that we were prepared to actually go under his tutelage, and have him help lead the party. He decided, so Dr. Tan was running his own separate track then. He was still deciding what to do after the lawsuit was over, because his main concern was about getting the right president in office to look after our reserves and things like that. When I presented this to him, it was what a lot of other people were talking about actually, was to get him back into the political arena, because this is so different from a presidency. He finally decided that maybe he wanted to do it as well. And so we decided to combine forces. I shared with Dr. Tan along the way the progresses that I made, the ideas that came up. I wrote the Constitution back in 2017 as well. I wrote the values, I wrote our party objectives, I wrote about everything that I could envision for Singapore. And we took the values, so I remember looking at the flag, and I remember the 5 values, that was being represented by the stars on our flag. And I said, if this is about a country, we should put those values in our Constitution as well. And I took those values and I put it in the Constitution as well, because we had to walk the talk. There's no point telling people that we want to represent the country, that we want to do things for the people, but yet we don't believe in the values that's already there. So I put that in, together with the other 13 values and principles of the Constitution. So the day came where he got his formal presidential supporting team. He has old friends from Araja as well. And we decided to talk about setting up a political party first. Now, this is not an easy thing. There is a lot of fear, a lot of political fear of setting up a political party. We spoke to a number of people, and people were willing to support behind the scenes, but they were not willing to sign on the dotted line and say, I'm going to put my name there and be one of the founding members. And these are good people, and we sort of respect and understand where they were coming from as well, because it's a lot to ask for from one person to do this, because it's putting yourself in the limelight, and you'll be scrutinized, you'll be looked at by many people, and things like that. And some of the people that I spoke with back then, like Hazel, Michelle, they wanted to do something for the country as well, and they were prepared to go learn together with Dr. Tan as well, and that's how we managed to come together. So I went to talk to each of these family members actually, to convince them. And in fact, some wanted to back out at the last minute on the day when we were supposed to sign the papers. But it just shows you that there's a fear. Even though they love the country, they also fear. And to say that I wasn't fearful at that point of time, I would be a fool as well. I mean, we've seen so many stories, you know, getting in trouble and things like that. But I felt that I had to do it. The time has already come. And if I don't try to do this, there may not be a chance in the future that I could do this, you know, for our people. And there might not be others who will step up to the plate and do this. Some people are saying, why do you want to create another political party? Why not go and join an existing opposition party? I think we are all different in many ways. And I think for the changes and the visions that I had to start with a clean, fresh slate and help cultivate that culture. We moved forward, and finally we registered ourselves on 28 March 2019. The registration process actually was approved earlier in February, but one of the things that wasn't cleared through at the point of time yet was our party symbol. So I designed our party symbol, and I also wrote our slogan, for country, for people. The name and all these things, everything that you see out there from PSP, when it came to the slogan, to the party name, to the logo and everything, it was done through a process of voting. So even though I had those ideas back in originally back in 2017, I felt that everybody who was present at that day had the right and a say in what they wanted. So I threw the name of PSP back out there again to make sure that it was accepted by everyone and it would be voted by everyone. So amongst all the names, at the end of the day, the vote came out to be Progressive Singapore Party. And that's where the name was finalized. Same thing with the slogan. It's put up for a vote amongst all the other votes, all the other slogans that people came up with, and that came through. For country, for people. I think these are all the basic essence that we need to put across to the people. Because why are we doing this? It's for the country, it's for the people. It's not for myself. It's not just for anyone around me. It's for everyone. Every Singaporean, regardless of the party that you support. As long as you hold a pink IC, we are doing this for you. And that's where I felt that we had to embrace diversity, you know, and we had to be inclusive, which is why also we wrote this egalitarianism, you know, in our party values, where all men are equal. So in this case, all men and women and everyone else are equals. And at one point, when we were going ahead, the name was suddenly nearly dropped. Somehow, some people didn't like the name, and I went to Dr. Tan, and Dr. Tan actually had second thoughts. And he actually said, it's not a very good name, right? You know, maybe we should change it. But we had to respect the votes. We can't just change our minds and say, hey, it's no good, after we have all voted on it, and then we don't want it now, and we want to just override. So I had to fight to keep the name, and the name was kept. So that was how the basic structure of PSP, you know, was being created. So when PSP first started, I had even friends who suddenly became no longer friends. Some of my friends were very staunch PAP supporters, and that was where I had the first taste of the realities of politics. That friends would actually say, oh, you're not my friend anymore. You know, you're an opposition party member. Because people always thought that an opposition party was bad for the country. Opposition people are bad people, you know, and things like that. And I felt it was unfair because nobody had given us a chance yet. And we were just new. So I think the presence of Dr. Tan back then was also important, you know, so that people could recognize a political face, because I was nobody then. I was not in politics. I never held office. I was not a former member of parliament. I had no political track record, but still, I had to give it a go. So we decided to launch the party, we went ahead with things. The amount of work behind the scenes was incredible. I mean, there was so much that was to be done just to do a party launch. There were so many ideal changes and things like that. And to be frank, it wasn't what I had thought it would be, but we did with what we had, back then. So when we decided to launch the party, it was then decided that Dr. Tan will become the Secretary General, and I'll be Assistant Secretary General, and the other fellow brave colleagues I had then were all put in their respective positions where we thought they could best contribute. Yeah, people were stunned. My friends were stunned. In fact, even my schoolmates were all stunned. But it wasn't the position and the title that mattered to me. It was what we wanted to do, because positions and titles are useless, actually, if you don't use them for the good of the people. There is no power behind a title unless you are able to empower others, with the position that you have been given. Real power comes from the people. When the people support you in what you want to do for the country and what they also want for their country. To me, it was just a formality. Work began. We had to identify places that we wanted to go. There were things that we wanted to do. And I remember there was this time where the PSP was starting to mention the news one day. Political parties should start doing their walkabouts, in areas where they want to contest and things like that, because of pending coming G and things like that. To be a bit cheeky, I felt it was a bit of like trying to bait us, because we were very secretive. And when I started creating this party, the infrastructure that I created, so I built the IT team, I created the IT stuff, I did the marketing stuff, I did everything that was imaginable. Because at that point of time, I was more of the brains and the heart behind it. So that's why I did everything. And it was a time where I thought, maybe let's do something different. So in 2019, I remember after that, we decided to do our first so-called appearance and walkabout. So there were people thinking that, PSP, Dr. Tan must be fighting Iraja, but Iraja didn't exist. So it's West Coast GRC. They for sure only going to walk there, chong there, that kind of thing. And some people were saying, maybe they will try to go to Tanjung Pagar, Lee Kuan Yew's ward, back then. And I thought, as much as we want to do things for the people, this was also political by nature. And I decided to cover the entire Singapore. So when I floated this idea, again, people thought I was mad again. I was like, no, why do we want to cover the entire Singapore in our first appearance? It's because we want people to know that we are there for them. It is for the country. We sort of corner ourselves and we box ourselves in, thinking along the lines of all the borders that was drawn by, the electoral commission back then. So people were thinking, I'm West Coast people, I'm Hougang people, I am wherever GRC or SMC there might be. But we shouldn't be looking at that way. We should look at it as a whole, Singapore as a whole. And this is where I used to tell people that we should look at Singapore as a blank canvas. Politicians, religious leaders, leaders of all walks of life, and all the people around Singapore, we are the artists, standing behind this canvas, and we are going to paint this canvas together. And we want to paint a picture that we would love, and that we would be proud of, and that we would like. We shouldn't approach politics in a patchwork manner where it's just about patching this political directive or that policy and things like that. patchwork has its limits. We have to look at Singapore as a blank canvas and paint it the way we want to paint it. And we want to do it together with the people. So it was sort of like a collective artwork that we're looking at. So I contacted all the various opposition parties because it's a very sensitive issue. Because people might think that we're going to contest against a opposition party, a fellow opposition party and things like that. And it's a sensitive matter because their supporters may not like, the idea or concept. But we were never there to go there and contest against them. They had done their own hard work, and we respect that. So, but the fact is, PAP had the majority of Singapore, in terms of the seats, and that's where we had to try and gain some seats for ourselves, as a start, so that we have a voice in Parliament. And after becoming this, being able to represent the people in Parliament, we can try and attempt to get more seats eventually. We have to start somewhere. But in a political move, I was just being cheeky, so I decided to let's cover the whole of Singapore. So we keep the PAP guessing. And the news crew I remember that followed us were actually surprised. They were quite taken aback. They didn't realize that we're going to be all over. So they only sent some people here, some people there, 2 places, 3 places, and that was it. And then they were like, why didn't you tell us? But if we told you guys, then it would have been fun, right? So we wanted a little bit of fun, in that manner. So after doing all these things, I think there were more and more players that came into the party. And that's where you also realize that politics is indeed complicated. It's a very, very complicated, big giant ball of rojak, People came in with their own different agendas and things like that. I would have to say that at the point of time, there were certain things that I got a little bit uncertain about, because some things were not turning out the way that I had envisioned things to be for our party. And to me, that was important, because how the party turned out to be and how the culture of the party is will lead to how governance will be like in the future. There was this particular part where I was told on one particular day by one individual that I shall name, that for now at least, that I should never let people know that I was the original creator of the party, and that I should never tell anyone. And this was a huge contrast, because this same individual had told me back then that he would always give me credit for the things that I've done. Now, the credit is not important, okay? But I think it's important to keep history as it is, because that was the main reason why I wanted to help in the presidential lawsuit as well. The essence of it back then to me was that Ong Teng Cheong was now the 2nd elected president, and Ong Teng Cheong is the 1st elected president. It shouldn't be just changed like that. And to me, something felt really off then when I was suddenly told that I couldn't tell anyone that I was the original creator and co-founder of the party. If you want to stretch it a little bit more, I could have been said as I was the original founder of the party, because that was before when we merged, efforts with everyone in doing this. And subsequently, I monitored things for a while more. And I thought something's still not going on right, but I still wanted to do things for our party first, so that we can do things for the people. After all these things that were being done, and after I was being told that I couldn't share the fact that I was the original creator, of the party, it bugged me. And I thought something was really wrong. And one fine day, I was actually asked to resign. So the reason why I'm talking about all these things right now is that I do have stage 4 terminal pancreatic cancer. doctors had given me only 6 months to a year to live. I have beaten expectations so far, but the cancer is still in me and it's all over my body. I'm inoperable. And I think history shouldn't fade away with me, once I'm gone. And I think it's very important that we live history as it is. I mean, even if we look at Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, there were recognitions, to his peers, Tojin Chai, Raja Ratnam, and all the pioneers that have started the PAP then. I thought it was very interesting that somehow it felt that my place, my contributions, and my efforts were somehow being erased from the party. Or at least it felt like that at that point of time. And my daughter was actually unwell at that stage, but it wasn't the main reason that I was asked to resign, or so-called I wanted to resign on my own. These are reasons that I will share in the future, but made me see a huge, tremendous change of what the party that I had set out to create and what it had become. As I mentioned earlier as well, with regards to my health and everything, I think it's vital that history not be changed or whitewashed for political purposes, for political gains, for any reason, that might be. The integrity of these things must be upheld, because if we can change history with our own whims and our own personal purposes, I think we lose a lot in what we are supposed to be doing, for the people. So the reason that I want to do this as well is that I think we should let PSP's history be known to the people, so that they're being accountable, in many ways. And I'm also accountable to my little girl on a very personal basis. My little girl who I missed a lot. I missed a lot of her childhood. I was away doing everything, trying to build PSP. Because to me, if I could do PSP successfully, I'll leave behind a better country for our people and for my daughter. Yeah. So, history really should be upheld. And I want to have this out there, in case one day I'm really gone, and that my own daughter also sees this video, and that she knows that, hey, Daddy was doing this for me as well, for country and for people.